While everyone knows Montessori, not many people are familiar with Emmi Pikler or Pikler's approach. This is a really valuable theory and approach that is quite practical to supporting infants and toddlers learning. So it is interesting because it is targeting the youngest children that we work with in early childhood education and care. So if you are interested in learning the new approach, tune in for more. Meet Emmi Pikler. Emmi Pikler is an amazing theorist and scientist and also an advocate for young children. And she lived most of her life in beautiful Budapest, one of the most beautiful cities in Eastern Europe, in my opinion. She was born in Vienna. However, all her work and her institution is in Budapest. So when it comes to infant development and theories, Storykate covered a lot of interesting approaches, including John Bowlby, Montessori, heuristic play, you name it. But Emmi Pikler is definitely worth talking about, especially because it is quite unusual and new approach. So who is Emmi Pikler? So Emmi was a pioneer in the field of early childhood education, and her work had profound influence on the way we understand and care for young children. For example, she founded Pikler Institute, which you can follow, the link in the description below. And she developed this approach that emphasizes respectful and child-centered care. So in this case, more infancy-centered or infant-centered, which is not usually the case, and I will explain why. So my interest in Emmi Pikler or Montessori for this reason is very simple. So quite often children, all children, doesn't matter their age, are considered to be vulnerable, cute, and not capable, while the new modern or contemporary theories promote the view of children as competent and capable. If you look at the EYLF or our framework for learning in Australia, it does promote children having the agency, which is in line with critical theory, and also children are involved in decision making. So all child safe standards in Victoria as well promote this sense of agency and participation of children in decision making. So it's very important to consider children as capable. It is promoted in most approaches that are world accepted as the best. For example, Scandinavian educare or play-based approach that comes from Scandinavian countries. Also, Reggio Emilia is well known for supporting this notion of children as capable. Marie Montessori was a pioneer in talking about infants as capable as well. However, Emmi Pikler added a lot more to this narrative. So let's find out. Key ideas of Emmi Pikler approach. So when we think about Emmi Pikler, there are a few ideas that you need to be familiar with. Let me show you on the mind map. So mind maps are a really amazing tool if you are a student or if you are an early childhood educator or teacher who wants to continue learning about new approaches and theories. And whenever you attend professional development session or studying an article, a book, reading something new, listening to the video cast or my videos, you can always use mind maps to document your thoughts. As you remember, Storykate promotes mind maps for planning, for inquiry-based projects, and this is mind map on Emmi Pikler. It's not complete, it's a work in progress, but you can see straight away that she was born in Vienna. She lived in Budapest. She was interested in infants. These are years of her life, 1902, 1984. She is the founder of Pikler approach, and key ideas included here. So one of the key ideas of Emmi Pikler, which I will unpack a little bit further as we go along, is respect. So respect, agency, you can call it whatever, but it is important to understand that babies and infants are born with skill set, and they really keen to be free, and they are humans and they deserve to be respected. So we need to respect them when we care for them, because they're quite vulnerable and obviously unable to change their own nappies or wash themselves for first few years. But promoting this agency and treating any of their body function and care with respect is what Emmi Pikler was promoting. It's also about how you listen to the babies, and you can watch few videos on how she interacted with babies, and you can actually model her practices and learn. The second key idea is movement. So movement is a very important part of being free, and quite often infants, especially now times, are restricted. So they have been restricted pretty much all the times to some extent, and it depends on the culture, of course. We know that development is cultural, according to Barbara Rogov, but most infants around the world are restricted in their movements. Why? Because they are vulnerable again, so we want to protect them. But Emmi Pikler said that you can supervise babies and you can still allow them to move freely. Never put the baby in a position they are not able to put themselves into. This is her one of the key quotes. Also, Emmi Pikler key idea is about sensory awareness. We're gonna talk a little bit more about it, which is aligned with Piaget work. And remember the first stage, sensory motor stage. Finally, care routines as opportunity to show respect, to allow children to move freely, and to connect with babies. So these are some basic key ideas, and we will delve into this approach a little bit more. Keep watching and post in the comments below what you think so far. So let's start with respect for the child. Like Maria Montessori, Emmi Pikler believed that treating children with respect is important. Maria Montessori was promoting respect in all her books. And I think as a parent, when I discovered Maria Montessori approach many years ago, more than 22 years ago now, I actually believed her, and I started to look at infants and babies as competent and as capable. So this really is important, because they are all individuals. They all show their preferences for what they like to eat, where they want to go, what they like to do. And based on my vast experience with infants, babies, toddlers, and all other children, observing other people's children, I can tell that their preferences, their abilities, their talents, their dispositions, as we call it in early childhood education and care, are absolutely evident from the start. Some things will develop further, but we can obviously start watching them, observing them, and respecting them. So Emmi Pikler philosophy fosters a sense of autonomy and sense confidence from early age. This aligned with our regulations, our national quality framework and EYLF, and also aligned with most contemporary theories and approaches, as I said. All these ideas were quite advanced for Emmi's time. Remember, she was born in 1902. And of course, this aligns closely to probably your ideas about children. Quite similar to Carl Rogers, who was a humanist, philosopher, and psychologist, and the views of Laris Malaguzzi, foundational father of Reggio Emilia. Reggio Emilia is informed by many theories. However, Emmi Pikler is not mentioned, but I can tell that the basis of Reggio Emilia definitely includes this idea of human rights, children's rights, which aligns with Emmi Pikler. Let's move to the second idea, which is a freedom of movement. So she emphasized that children need to move. It's important to let them move and explore. So which brings us again to Piaget's idea of child as a little scientist who is exploring the world. So we have to prepare the environment for them to be fascinated by. So whether it's inside or outside, indoors, outdoors, on the walk, on excursion, in the community. So we need to provide them with a lot of opportunities for independent play and self-initiated activities. allowing development of motor skills and sense of independence or agency. So I agree with that as an educator and a trainer, university teacher as well. Babies are moving machines and should not be restricted to moving as much as possible. So whether it is turning to the side, lifting their head, having this tummy time, as you can see on the picture, it should be provided to babies. It's their right. Here is a quote that I like by Emmi Pikler. The way to help a child to start walking is neither to induce nor carry them, but to encourage them to all possible ways to use their own abilities in doing it himself or herself. So I agree with this approach, because when my son was young and when I was looking after other children, we tend to carry them because it's easier sometimes and it's convenient. So nothing wrong with carrying a child when you need to, but a lot of people sometimes restrict them, putting them in walkers or in cots, and this way children are not allowed to move enough. Yes, so the best way to encourage movement is obviously to give them freedom. So think about if you agree with it as an educator. Does it resonate with your views? Sensory awareness is the second key idea of Emmi Pikler. Pikler approach focuses on cultivating child's sensory awareness. This involves providing materials and experiences that stimulate the senses, fostering deep understanding of the world through touch, sight, sound, and other senses. If you are interested in thinking about how to apply this to practice, watch my video on treasure baskets or heuristic play, which I made a few years ago. So sensory awareness idea aligns with Maria Montessori as well. You can probably recognize her sensory materials or practical life approach. Jean Piaget, sensory motor stage, and schema, that's a new approach as well based on the ideas of Piaget. And nature pedagogies, which is about encounter, embodiment. So children interact with nature, natural materials through their senses. So that's really new approach, nature pedagogies. So I encourage you also to research a little bit more. And if you want, I can make a video on that. So neuroscience obviously supports children's sensory awareness, and Emmi Pikler was not wrong. So as Maria Montessori and Piaget, children are sensory learners like all people, but they are really in this stage when it's very important for brain architecture and development. So next key idea is care routines that are done with respect. As you know, EYLF and National Quality Framework promote routines and learning opportunities. So when we change a nappy, and that's what I encourage my students to do, you need to communicate with children. You need to encourage them to respect their body, to understand their body needs, and involve child in this process by commenting, by interacting. So this experience is positive and responsive. So this experience also can teach children to understand themselves better, to be aware of themselves. So that's really big foundation for respect, for child safety in the future, and of course for cognitive development too. In most educational centers that I visit, and they have exceeding rating, this philosophy is very strong, and you can see it in practice. It is based on children's right and big respect and alignment with the EYLF ECA Code of Ethics, where it says that you act in the best interest of children. Reggio Emilia approach that I mentioned as well, they do promote right-based education, and in Australia most centers are encouraged to do that so. So the common example is to ask children before changing their nappies or lifting them from the floor is, would you like me to change your nappy? Would you like me to move you over here? I have seen it a lot recently, and this warms my heart, because you really do communicate with babies. You even can say it like this: I'm going to move you over here so you are safe. But this also includes the child in decision making. And if child says no, we usually have to respect it to some extent, depends on the safety. If child is in danger, of course we will have to move them anyway, but talking about it promotes this respect and learning. Now let's talk about application to practice. So that's my favorite part, because quite often theories are not really explained in terms of what does it mean for you as an educator. So if you pause for a second and think what kind of key ideas of Emmi Pikler you can already start putting into practice, I encourage you to write it down or brainstorm and create a mind map. Share it in the comments what you think about this theory and whether it is applicable to you. So number one application is to create a safe environment for children to explore. As I said, it's very similar to Jean Piaget theory. So early childhood educators can create environments or design environments that are safe for exploration and movement, which means clean, open spaces. Again, think modern centers, think Reggio Emilia, think about toys and materials that are at child's level. Think Maria Montessori as well. So Pikler developed a wooden frame that is quite often used in Montessori centers, which I and my son played on when he was very young. So when he was 1.5, he loved to climb this frame, and he would also pick up all the practical tools from Montessori materials, such as shovel and a brush. But this was his favorite, along with the indoor slide, which is really important for centers that are like in environments where the weather can be harsh and children are not going outside, especially babies. In Australia, this is applicable because we have very harsh sun, and indoor equipment is very important. Next point of application is prepared environment, and here I gathered some really good materials to illustrate this point. Children should have opportunities to exploration and learning. For example, open-ended materials, loose parts, natural parts. My favorite parts, loose parts, are all that you can see here. So also consider treasure baskets, Montessori and Steiner materials that you can start using today. Observation and responsiveness. Of course, if you are working with infants, you will need to observe children. Observing them requires being aware, yes, awareness, and also being tuned to their actions. Because babies are not big talkers, they do vocalize. For example, they might say, very early, and they can start cooing and babbling. This is when you listen, this is when you watch, and this is when you observe, not just how they interact with materials and resources, but how they interact with you and other people, how they interact with babies. So observations should be really deep. So it's not about taking snapshots or pictures of children and showing parents different postures they're in. That's what I've seen in many centers as well. But noticing, learning, yet noticing body language, noticing the moments when you can help and do intentional teaching, interfere and promote, scaffold, facilitate. Yes, so that's a really, really important part of our job. Also, we need to encourage independence, and here is an illustration here of a treasure basket that my students put together. So you can see that treasure basket encourages independent play. Also, floor-based play, when child is lying down on their tummy, or they are sitting down, or they're exploring the environment, standing up or attending to stand up, is very important part of independent play. So make the environment clean, appealing, aesthetically pleasing and safe to offer children this space to explore, fostering self-directed learning, allowing them to make choices. So once again, as you can see, a lot of heuristic play and treasure baskets, Piaget, Montessori materials are related to this practice. Now, because you know that Storykate is very balanced in approaches to theories, I don't believe there is any one theory that explains it all. let's consider some criticism, yes, or critique the theory, because it's really good reflective practice to think about, all right, so that's all good, but what is the catch? What are the disadvantages or potential gaps? So one of the gaps we can think of is cultural context. So some people argue that Pikler approach may be suited to children who are from certain cultural contexts and may need adaptation to be fully effective in diverse settings. So in other words, be reflective how you allow children to move freely. Is it suitable in your environment? For example, if you are in the outback Australia and your center is outside, you may have some dangerous insect snakes present. So moving freely would not be the case. You need to supervise children. And Barbara Rogoff, another theorist that I respect deeply, also talks about it when she shares the example that in one particular tribe, children are not reaching the ground until they are 3, so they're not crawling, so they're missing the crawling stage. Why? Because the ground is hazardous, full of snakes, dangerous animals, and because the community lives in the jungle, children are passed on from one adult to another. Consider this as an example of cultural context, okay? Limited social interactions. So the focus on independent play and self-directed activities with minimal guidance may be criticized for potential limiting social interactions among children. Some argue that the balance between independence and social engagement is essential. However, I think this point is not really serious, because I watched Emmi Pikler, and I will put the link in the description. When she observes children, when she interacts with them, she is more of an observer, but she definitely interacts with them, and there are interactions between children. So it's not that it is limiting, it's more like that it's not the main focus. Independent play versus social play, definitely not canceling each other, so they both can be supported. Sometimes child feels like they want to explore the material, for example, these finger paints, and sometimes they want to interact with other children and adults. So that's not the strongest point of criticism, I would say. And the third one probably would be in learning about her approach in depth. So if you don't really know this approach with all the posters that Emmi Pikler created, where she shows the movements of the babies, or if you do not have access to her specially prepared resources such as the frame that I mentioned, your application of this theory may be a little bit limited. So in general, I am a supporter of social cultural approach, as you know, which is based on the ideas of Lev Vygotsky or Vygotsky, depends on how you pronounce it. So I believe that learning leads to development, and infants can be taught explicitly or supported to appreciate music, play musical instruments like maracas, drums, and later on ukulele under the guidance of more knowledgeable others. When we sit back and observe children, we definitely allow them freedom, but we put too much emphasis on the environment. I think the neuroscience suggests that our interaction with a baby in the prepared environment is benefiting them much more than just independent exploration. Why? Because we introduce concepts. We also introduce vocabulary, that something children can learn through osmosis, but it's much better to, let's say, do what this lady is doing, the teacher, reading a book, let's say, and explaining child concepts. Or if you are doing finger painting with children, you can talk about texture of the finger paints, such as, oh, look, it is runny, it is smooth. Oh, orange is so beautiful. What's going to happen if we mix orange and green? I wonder. So you ask questions. You are involving baby in sustained shared thinking. You're also modeling. So you're using a lot of explicit teaching, intentional teaching. When we are young, we need this support. We need this explicit scaffolding, right? And that's why I think just observing children moving freely is enjoyable, but I think you can really increase your impact as a teacher if you will marry these two theories, social cultural and Emmi Pikler. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, who else is like Emmi Pikler? It's really good to find associations or links because this really deepens your understanding of the theory as well. Now you know that Jean Piaget proposed the same things as Emmi Pikler, also Maria Montessori. Let's have a look. Maria Montessori, why she is similar? What you see on this picture is the child that is involved in color frames. Yes, so these are beautiful, I think beautiful resource, definitely wonderful, that introduces different colors and shades. So we allow child to experiment, and because they kind of learn through involvement in independent play, these resources are absolutely suitable for babies. Yeah, both Maria Montessori and Emmi Pikler emphasized respect for the child, importance of prepared environment, and the role of independence and independent play research in child development. So again, here, if you are a teacher, you can extend on this material play with some stories that you can create with children using imaginative play. This material in Montessori playgroup will or the center will only be used according to the instructions. However, if you are a teacher like me who is picking and choosing different theories, you would probably promote this material to be used as loose parts. So which is not in line with Montessori believers. Some of them would say, no, we don't allow children to do whatever they want with the resources. Which camp are you in? Post in the comments below. Reggio Emilia. So I already mentioned Reggio Emilia, and who you see here is Laris Malaguzzi, the foundational father or teacher and director of the first school. And he also promoted prepared environment, including art studio for babies and toddlers. Now Reggio Emilia is using digital technology. I was absolutely amazed by resources they're using, and I watched their live Zoom call, I would say, when they showed what kind of experiences toddlers are involved in, not infants but toddlers, and they use digital cameras, computers, and they mirror outdoor areas to the screen inside, and toddlers go from indoors to outdoors and they make these connections. So this is a carefully prepared environment, but also educators observing these infants and toddlers make a lot of notes and then reflect. So really is similar to Emmi Pikler, but I would say more depth and more modern as well. Magda Gerber, who I'm going to make a video on, of course, is another great educator. So she's Hungarian too, and she works closely with Emmi Pikler, and together they developed resources for infant educators. So you can really look it up. Yeah, so I want you to actually Google it and find out more about it, but I promise I will make another video on Magda Gerber approach as well. So we have self-directed play as well, a lot of independence and a sense of agency. Jean Piaget. So while not strictly an early childhood educator, more like a psychologist, a theorist, a researcher who made significant contribution to the understanding of development of children, he also talked about constructivism, right? So he talked about child constructing their own knowledge, which means that as they interact with their environment, let's say these finger paints or whatever resources I showed before, they develop schemas or mental schemas, mental structures, and they understand how world works through that. So they construct through exploration. John Dewey is another one that is worth full video, of course. John Dewey was an American philosopher and educational reformer. He had profound impact on progressive education. He focused on early childhood and school education, and his key idea is that children learn through hands-on experiences. For example, if you are gardening, you with children, you have more opportunities to teach them things rather than just reading a book about gardening. So projects that are experiential, yes, so very, very important. Now a quote here that I want to include, and as you can see on this picture, we have an Emmi Pikler environment where infants are exploring. You probably will see similar resources and similar frames in early childhood centers today. However, sometimes they are a little bit too safe and they're not as challenging as this one. So I think it's very important to allow children to take risks as well, and that's one of the key ideas of Emmi. But we supervise them and we ensure that we do support safety as well. So this is a quote I want to share before the end of this video. The task of the adult is not to shape the child into, but to allow the child to reveal. Just let it sink a little bit. So reveal, could it be reveal their potential? So just to flower like a bloom, like a flower. I love this idea. So if you want to learn more, check this professional development. So educators interested in professional development or Pikler approach can look it up on Hungarian website, which got English translation. You also can watch this video if you click on it. Also some videos that are done by Magda Gerber, so that's really great one as well. Some blogs that are talking about Pikler approach, so you can check this one. Peer learning as well, so you can engage with other educators and ask if they know about Pikler approach. And also, if you are interested in the resources, you can buy them here. shoppikler.hun. That's for English. Thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video. So now, in the comments below, post what you think about Emmi Pikler approach. Would you be using it? And is it worth adding to your repertoire of practices? And the final quote: in our treatment of children, every moment sends forth its vibrations, every attitude speaks, every glance, touch, or word has an inner meaning. Our task is to be alert to these deep currents, recognize them, and interact with respect. Isn't that beautiful? Thanks for watching. Bye for now.